Good morning, guys. Assalamu alaikum. Today we are going to talk about Kashmir. The lecture is Kashmir, Genesis of the Dispute and Possibility of Conflict Resolution. I hope you are aware that this is our major conflict, major international relations, a foreign policy conflict. Our nation has been continuously held hostage by whatever is wrong in Kashmir and whatever our differences are there with India. And in many ways, I think one reason that we have not been able to come up in the world the way we should have is the cost of conflict. When we talk about Bangladesh going ahead of us, I say that they are in many ways worse than us. Their governance is bad, very poor. Their President Hasina Wajid has put all the opposition leaders in jail. She's very brutal. She's hanging people who she believes were instrumental in or supported the cause of united Pakistan. There is high level of corruption and all that, but they are economically better than us, and they are the second largest producer of textiles after China. So what is the reason? The one reason that comes to my mind, there might be other reason. They're certainly not better than us. They're certainly not better. I was a young schoolboy when East Pakistan separated from us. A very, very painful thing that happened. Perhaps you cannot imagine that, your country being dismembered and your army being humiliated and all that stuff. So I was a student of metric when it happened. But the reason that they have gone ahead of us is that there's no conflict in their area. At least there's no external conflict. They might be having a lot of internal conflicts. They might be having Rohingya refugees in their country. But the cost of conflict is very, very small if you compare to Pakistan. Their defense budget is smaller. They don't have real enemies. They have accepted India as a hegemon in the area. India considers them to be a junior partner and all that stuff. They have issues with India, but the kind of issues that we have with India is nobody's business. So our major conflict is Kashmir. If Kashmir can be resolved, I can assure you we can speed ahead of all the countries in South Asia. That is how we can go ahead of India. We can go ahead of Afghanistan is no issue, and even perhaps we can be ahead of Iran. So this is an issue. Don't take it lightly. This has to be resolved. My parents were not able to resolve it. I was not able to resolve it. If you can, you should resolve it. And it is not just that we should keep on shedding tears over the kind of brutalities that are taking place in Kashmir. We should seriously engage ourselves in bringing about some kind of conflict resolution, because conflict resolution is immensely important for Pakistan in this region. So reading list, I had recommended at least two books to you. One was Danger in Kashmir, this Disputed Legacy by Lister Lamb, and the other one I said
Danger in Kashmir by Joseph Corbell. Third one.
Danger in Kashmir by Joseph Corbell. And the interesting thing about Joseph Corbell is that he was a Czech diplomat, and he was the father of Madeleine Albright. Anybody has any idea who Madeleine Albright was?
I've heard the name, I don't remember.
Sorry?
I've heard the name, I don't remember.
You've heard the name. Anybody else who knows who Madeleine Albright was? Madeleine Albright was the US Secretary of State. So we were talking about the reading list, and I was trying to tell you that this book written by Joseph Corbell, Once Upon a Time, was compulsory reading for all those who were in the US State Department, all those in the US State Department who were supposed to be South Asia specialists. So the other books also, Raiders in Kashmir by General Akbar Khan, Slender. This tells you the story of people who went into Kashmir initially after partition, the tribesmen and the soldiers. And Slender was a thread. This was the Indian version of how they were able to. So I think there's a typo over here. How they were able to stop the invasion into Kashmir, or whatever they call it, invasion. We considered the freedom movement, and then the Gilgit rebellion, by William Brown, and I'm going to talk about this fellow also, the major who mutinied over partition of India. So Major Willie Brown. So Kashmir is slice of heaven. It's a very, very beautiful place, an exotic place, and it's a tourist destination, although tourism has declined over the years because of unrest in the valley, because people want freedom, because there's troubles, problems. This is a scene from the famous Dal Lake, and this is a houseboat or shikara, and these are the mountains in the background. And there's a famous couplet which says that Gar Firdaus barru'e zameenas, hamiyas to hamiyas to hamiyas. If there's heaven on earth, it is it. So Kashmir is very, very beautiful. I wish I can go there. The valley I'm talking about. I've been in Azad Kashmir, but I'm talking about the valley. So significance of Kashmir for Pakistan. We all know that the term Pakistan was coined by Chaudhry Rahmat Ali. So Chaudhry Rahmat Ali was then a student in Oxford or Cambridge, and there he wrote a pamphlet in which he now or never, and that he gave this term Pakistan. And the term Pakistan is a collection of, it's an acronym for all the areas that he visualized would be part of Pakistan. So, and this is what Jinnah, our founding father, told to Mountbatten on 17th May 1947, and this has been cited in Lamb's book. The derivation of the word Pakistan: P for Punjab, A for Afghan, that is Pathan or NWFP at that time, K for Kashmir, I for nothing because that letter was not in the word in Urdu, S for Sindh, and Tan for the last syllable for Balochistan. So K for Kashmir. So Kashmir was also always considered to become part of Pakistan because it's a Muslim majority area. Geopolitical significance of Kashmir, and then there's another point about this. I read in a book somewhere that Hussain Shahid Sohrawardi, who was Chief Minister of Bengal, he came to Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah and he said, what if we pitch for an independent Bengal? Because he was the Chief Minister of Bengal, which included East Bengal, West Bengal also, which is now part of India, which include Calcutta and other places. He was Chief Minister of the combined Bengal at the time of partition. And he said, what if we pitch for an independent Bengal? Qaid-e-Azam said, go ahead, I have no issues with that. But I know that Indians would not allow you to do that. I do not know whether you should thank us or not, because it was whatever happened was in bad blood. It was very, very painful. It was very humiliating. We could have parted at a good note. They were not bad people. Nobody is bad. Everybody is good. Everybody is a human being. So, but that was bad for our country. Very, very bad. It was a sad chapter in our history, in our short history at that time. So, geopolitical significance of Kashmir, it borders on China, Russia, Afghanistan, and India. Going back to your point that Bangladesh should thank us, the Bengalis on the other hand would say we should thank them
for your independence. Yes.
For our independence.
आपने भी खुद ही बोला ना कि अगर बांग्लादेश अगर अकेले एक इंडिपेंडेंट बंगाल के लिए if they would have like vote for it तो वो नहीं कर सकते थे.
Because the Indians did not agree to it.
Because the Indians did not.
But then I should also take you back. There was this division of Bengal. I do not know whether you were taught in school or not. The division of Bengal. Please read about it. Bengal was divided on communal lines, and that was because the Muslims wanted more resources, because Bengal, in Bengal, like in other places, Muslims were suppressed. They were basically peasants, farmers, muslin weavers. They would create such fine muslin that could be passed through a ring. But when the British came, it is heard that they cut off the thumbs of the muslin weavers because they wanted this industry to go to UK. They wanted all the cotton to go to the factories in UK, Birmingham, Manchester, and the finished good should be coming back. So Muslims were poor, so it was divided on ethnic lines, on religious lines, but then it was recombined. Even Sindh if you recall, was part of the Bombay presidency, and it was also divided. So these are interesting landmarks in our history. If you're interested in history, please read up on these things. Why was Bengal divided, and why was Bengal reunited, and how was Sindh separated from Bombay, and then again become part of it. So it's interesting history. So China, Russia, Afghanistan, and India, all headwaters of the rivers flowing into Pakistan are located in Kashmir. So that is very, very important. All are headwaters, all rivers flowing into Pakistan, apart from one river. And which river is that? No? Kabul River. Kabul River comes from Afghanistan. The rest all rivers come from Kashmir. And as I told you, it has immense potential for tourism. People in undivided India and even now used to go to Kashmir because Kashmir was is a beautiful place, and in summers as the plains get hot, very, very hot, people would go up to the high mountains of Kashmir. So this is a map of Kashmir, slightly dated because it says northern areas. We now call the northern areas Gilgit-Baltistan. Okay. So this is Azad Kashmir, a sliver of territory in Kashmir. The much larger part that we have is of Gilgit-Baltistan, and then this is Jammu Kashmir, and this is a territory which was given to China in 1963 by Pakistan, and this is Aksai Chin, which is under Chinese occupation. So this is the area of interest. So rulers of Kashmir, this going into ancient history, Kashmir has always been very important. Many old civilizations have flourished over there. As we talked about Afghanistan also, the Buddhists have been here, the Hindus have been here, flourishing civilization. We still have temples. If you go into Neelam Valley and go to Sharda, you can still find a very old temple, and it was presumably a university, so all the Buddhist monks, etc., would come to these areas for education, for mediation, things of that sort. And the first Muslim dynasty was 1339, Shamir dynasty, and it continued up till 1585. And in 1586, the Mughals occupied it, and it remained under the Mughal occupation till 1747. And now a connection from our last lecture, Afghan Durrani Empire, 1747 to 1819. The Afghans occupied it, okay, till 1899 they were under the Afghans. And then the Sikhs occupied it. The Sikhs captured Punjab under Ranjit Singh, and they were there till 1846. So is that making sense? Are you understanding how the history took shape in Kashmir? So they had been under occupation of different, and even if you talk to Kashmiris from the valley or you read about it, they were even very unhappy with the Mughal and Afghan rule. The Kashmiris themselves are considered to be very pliant people. They were the stereotypical Kashmiri was not supposed to stand up and offer any resistance. So everybody suppressed them, although Mughals and the Pathans were Muslims, but even they suppressed them. And there's a word, most of them used to be laborers, carrying porters, carrying stuff for people. And there's a word which is used for a Kashmiri laborer, which is hatu. And hatu is a sort of derogatory word, because hatu means come here, or boy, listen to me, something of that sort. So even people would not take the name hatu, come here, carry my luggage. So this was the kind of status of the indigenous Kashmiris. So you have couplets by Allama Iqbal in which he says that Kashmir majboor or mahboor. I'm talking about old Kashmir. So they were under repressive rules. They remained under repressive rules. Sikhs were repressive, and 1846 the Sikhs lost to the British, and there was a treaty in Amritsar, and there was then in 1846, and then there was a treaty in Lahore, and under those treaties the Dogras purchased Kashmir from the British. I'll come to that also. And this remained the situation till 1947. And Dogras were Hindu Rajputs, so they were not Sikhs, although they carried the surname Singh in their name, but they were not Sikhs. So 1847 till 1847 they were the rulers, and after that it has become disputed territory between India and Pakistan since 1947. So the history making sense? I've tried to simplify it. It might not be as simple as it appears on the slide. So going back to when the Dogras bought Kashmir. So the Treaty of Amritsar 1846, after the defeat of Sikhs Empire in the First Anglo-Sikh War by the British, Kashmir was formally ceded to the Brits. The Treaty of Lahore, Gulab Singh Dogra paid 75 lakhs Nanak Shahi rupees to the British for all the lands comprising Kashmir. Okay, so it was sold to the Dogras. An important thing over here is that Gilgit-Baltistan formed part of Kashmir, and in 1935 the British took it on lease from the Dogras. 1935 they took it on lease from the Dogras for 65 years. They had purchased it, and then they gave it on lease to the British in 1935 after that. Does that make sense? And why did they give it on lease, or why did the British get it on lease? Because they thought that this was a very important area. It has always been a very important area. It has also always been on, like Afghanistan, it has been on the crossroads of history. Russians, Chinese, Indians. This was the hub of economic activity and all that. Very beautiful place, touristic destination, all that stuff. So they thought that they should take this area for their own safety, because perhaps they might be knowing that the Second World War is going to break out in 4 years' time, and they may have problems there. So this is a portrait of Maharaja Gulab Singh in 1847, a year after signing the Treaty of Amritsar, when he became Maharaja by purchasing the territories of Kashmir to the eastward of the river Indus and westward of the river Ravi for 7.5 million rupees from the British. So he has a full beard, but he's not a Sikh. So this is a 1909 map of the princely state of Kashmir and Jammu. The names of different regions, important cities, rivers and mountains are underlined. So this is Baltistan, and this is Ladakh, and this is Kishtwar, and this is Jammu. Sorry, Jammu is here, and this is Hazara, Hazara. It's penetrating into Kashmir. So these are the areas which were part of the princely state of Kashmir, and this was the northwest frontier province over here. So situation in Jammu and Kashmir in 1947, the area, it was the second largest princely state. And which was the largest princely state? There were 560 odd princely states in India. Some were as small as a few villages, and some were as big as Kashmir or Hyderabad, Deccan, or maybe Bawalpur. So there were some very big states, and some of them were very, very small. So this was the second largest princely state. And the population, according to 1901 census of the British Indian Empire, this was how much does it make? 29 lakhs something. And the Muslims were in majority. And then were the Hindus, and then were the Sikhs, and then there were the Buddhists. The Buddhists are mainly located in Ladakh. So it was a majority Muslim state with a Hindu ruler. So there was this conflict of interest. Hyderabad was a majority Hindu state with a Muslim ruler. So again there was conflict. You see, Nizam also wanted to remain independent or wanted to join Pakistan, could not because he had no links with Pakistan. But Nizam perhaps wanted to become part of Pakistan. The Nawab of Junagadh wanted to become part of Pakistan. Again, he was a ruler of a country which is majority Hindu. Kashmiris wanted to become part of Pakistan because they had been under repressive rules of the Dogras for a very long time. The Dogra rulers were very, very, very repressive. There's a book by the name of Shahab Nama. If you get a chance, did you read it? Yes. Have you read it? Yes. So it gives a lot about what kind of suppression of Kashmiris were taking place, because Qudratullah Shahab comes from Jammu. He says that the Maharaja had taxed everything, and if he had his way, he would have even taxed the air that people were breathing. So it's interesting reading if you read Qudratullah Shahab. So the Muslims were a suppressed lot. There was a popular uprising against the repressive rule of the Maharaja in 1931. But not that there were no uprisings against him. There were uprisings against him. And the Maharaja's ambition was he wanted to continue his rule over the states, so he opted for a standstill agreement with the two dominions. Standstill agreement. So he said, stand still, let's decide, give me time, stand still at the moment. What happened was that at the time of partition, the princely state had an option to become part of India or Pakistan or remain independent. But Mountbatten, he became the Governor General of the independent India and the last Viceroy of India. He tried his best that all the princely state opt either for one or the other state.
But mostly they forced them to be a part of India.
Right. And if the ones who did not were forcibly occupied, like for example Hyderabad. Hyderabad was attacked on 11th of September 1948. They called it police action, Operation Polo. 11th of September 1948. Does it ring any bell?
Yeah.
11th September 1948.
Yeah.
Sorry?
The
Qaeda-Azam died on that day. So they chose that day to invade Hyderabad, Deccan. Hyderabad, Deccan had appealed to Pakistan to help them. So Pakistan did send out some people to carry out reconnaissance, but Pakistan had no chance to actually send its armies there, because Pakistan had no army then. It was its army was fragmented, spread all over the world at the end of Second World War. So they could not go to their help. The Indians invaded Afghanistan, although they called it police action. It was not police action, it was army action. And then much later, in early 1960s, they forcibly occupied Goa. Goa, you must be seeing it in Bollywood films.
Yes.
Goa.
Yes, the beach city.
Sorry?
The beach city. The beach city.
The beach city. It was a Portuguese property. It was Portuguese territory, because who discovered India? Yes, Vasco da Gama was a Portuguese. So in this, which year did he come to India?
1498.
Whatever, you might be correct. I don't know the exact date, but we should know. So the Portuguese came there, and the Portuguese brought along with them their religion and their cuisine and their way of life, and people would speak Portuguese there, and perhaps they still speak Portuguese. The names that they have, de Milo, de Souza, these are all Portuguese names. So Goans, and when I was very young, we knew that in Karachi they had Goan cooks. So Goanese cuisine is separate from the Indian cuisine, okay, from the Punjabi cuisine. So they forcibly occupied in 1961 perhaps Goa. Again, they said police action, because Portuguese wanted to remain independent, and the Western countries did make some hue and cry at that time, but nobody could stop India. So India forcibly occupied the people who did not want to become part of their country. Okay, and another point that you might like to remember is that Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister, was of Kashmiri descent, although he lived in Allahabad, but he was a He was a Kashmiri Pandit. Pandit is a title, is a religious title, but it's also a caste. It's a Kashmiri caste. Kashmiris usually carry their castes with them. Butts, Meers, Loans, Dars. When you meet a Kashmiri, usually the full name that they will give you will reveal their caste. Okay, Meers,
Wani.
huh?
Wani.
Wanis, Burhan Wani. So they usually carry their caste with them. Perhaps some of the Kashmiris also carry the caste Khan, because they're. But yes, they do. There are people in Kashmir who say that we are Pathans, and they call themselves Sudan Kashmiri. So they have Sardar in front of their name and Khan at the end of their name. So the current president of Kashmir, Sardar Masood Khan. So many of them call themselves Sudan Kashmiri, and most of them were in Poonch, and they were fighters. They had gone with soldiers, good fighting qualities. Sudan Kashmiris, okay. And I have seen also in areas in Kashmir, our part of Kashmir, there are villages where they still speak Pashto, a very high mountains. So Pashtuns are everywhere. So this is the standstill agreement. So 560 princely states, given the choice, most of them opted for, they took the geography into consideration. So if you are located somewhere in the middle of India, you will obviously opt for India. Bhopal, for instance, were a very big princely state with a Muslim ruler. Actually, they had Begums of Begums of Bhopal. So on 12th of August 1947, the Prime Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, he offered a standstill agreement to both India and Pakistan through an identical telegram. The telegram read, Jammu and Kashmir government would welcome standstill agreements with India and Pakistan on all matters on which there exist at the moment with outgoing British government. It is suggested that existing arrangements should continue pending settlement of details. Let me go back to the map. See, all the communication infrastructure was through Pakistan. You see, the roads either through Kashmir, through Sialkot, or through the various passes would go to Rawalpindi. You see, so the communications infrastructure, the telegraph lines, they were all through Pakistan. So they were at that moment in time totally dependent on areas which became part of Pakistan. So the standstill agreement said, let us settle the details later. So they were aware that there would be pressure on them, and there was pressure on them to join either India or Pakistan. So reply from government of Pakistan sent on August 15, 1947, the first day of independence, the very first day of independence. The government of Pakistan responded, your telegram of the 12th, the government of Pakistan agrees to have a standstill agreement in Kashmir for the continuance of the existing arrangement pending settlement of details and formal exit. 15th of August, Pakistan said yes, yes, yes. The Indian government was devious. They did not want to. They want to occupy it. They wanted to occupy it. They said the government of India would be glad if you or some other minister duly authorized in this behalf could fly to Delhi for negotiating standstill agreement between Kashmir government and India Dominion. So you understand what a Dominion was. Early action is desirable to maintain intact existing agreements and administrative arrangements. So you understand what Dominion was? Yes? Dominion? Dominion?
No, sir, not very clearly.
Not very clear. Anybody? So when Pakistan and India were granted independence, they were not fully independent per se. They were dominions. They were dominions of Britain. We were granted dominion status.
Even after independence?
Yes, because you did not have a formal constitution of your.
I know that was something, Indian Act something.
Indian Act of India 1935.
1935, yes.
So we were going by the Indian Act 1935. So the moment you had your own constitution and you declared yourself a republic, you shed the dominion status, and India was quick in doing so. They did it in 1951, 26 January 1951. That is why they celebrate it as their Republic Day. And what is our Republic Day?
23rd March.
1956.
23rd March 1947.
No, 56.
So 40 was
First
when we
constitution was in
56. So that is the confusion. Many when I ask people why is 23rd March important, they said because it was the Pakistan resolution was passed that day in Lahore, Minto Park. I said yes, but why do we hold the parade that day? And people do not know why. It was that day in 1956 that we declared ourselves a republic, Republic of Pakistan. And that day we shed the status of a dominion. Before that, we would call ourselves the Royal Pakistan Air Force and Royal Pakistan Signals or Royal Pakistan Artillery. So we shed the title Royal that day. And I remember my father, who was an Air Force officer, he had one ribbon, 56 ribbon, Republic Day medal. So everybody was given a medal, Republic. Pakistan has become a republic, okay. So no more royal titles, no more Royal Pakistan Air Force. So it became Pakistan, Republic of Pakistan Day. Okay, 1956, first constitution. It was abrogated in 1958 by General Ayub Khan when he imposed martial law. And that is the problem. Because he abrogated the constitution, they started to hide this fact that 23rd March 1956 is our Republic Day. So this was the response that was given by India. Actually, they were actually buying time. They did not want any standstill agreement. They just wanted to occupy Kashmir. So if they say that Pakistan was not honest, they were not honest. Okay. And so I want you to know all these things, because when you engage in conversation with somebody, you must know your own history and you must be very clear of what your stance is on Kashmir is. Most of the time we do not know about our own stance. We do not know about our own history. Most of the time we make a poor spectacle of ourselves when we are trying to defend Kashmir or defend Pakistan. So your country is all right. Is not everything is wrong with your country. Perhaps most things are right. Your only problem is that we have not been able to get good governance, and we have not been able to pitch for our case in a very forceful manner. So representative of Kashmir did not visit Delhi because of troubles at home, because immediately there was a rebellion in Punch, and there was a rebellion in Gilgit-Baltistan, and there were tribesmen and soldiers pouring into Kashmir. October 1947. Okay.
I'm sorry, sir, but why was he called to India?
They were buying for time. They said, come over and we'll discuss it over a cup of tea.
So they didn't want standstill. India did not.
No.
That's my take on it.
Right.
They said, come over, we'll discuss things, matters. But obviously when there's trouble at home, who goes there and discusses things, okay? They were scrambling. They did not know what to do. The Maharaja was afraid that the tribals would come and kill him also. So he had run off to Jammu, actually. So there was problem at home. If they were so keen, the Indians could have sent somebody. After all, Krishna Menon did come to the Maharaja and asked him to sign the instrument of accession. He could come over. India was an established country. Pakistan was not an established country. I am surprised how come they were sending them telegrams. Who was there in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? I do not know. Because it was all in shambles. Pakistan was on the periphery of India. Everything had to be created from scratch. Everything. No army, no government, nothing. No constitution. Everybody was scrambling. People were crossing borders. People did not know what to do.
But the reply was for sure from Pakistan, was it?
Pakistan said yes.
Was it not manipulated? Like for sure from Pakistan?
Absolutely. 15th of August, Pakistan said yes.
Okay.
We agree. What I'm trying to say is that everything was so fluid, and even then people were responding. People were responsible. People were not missing lectures. People were coming. Pakistan was created on a lot of hope. A lot of hope. People sacrificed lives. Pakistan sacrificed properties. Quaid-e-Azam, Mountbatten told Quaid-e-Azam, Jinnah, you will be losing your properties in Bombay, and he was a very, very rich man. Don't do it. And the Qaid said, I want Pakistan. I do not want my properties. The only time he was upset probably was when Nehru decided to dismantle his house in Malabar Hills. Pakistan still wants Jinnah House. They are so, the Indians are so, I would say, petty. Yeah, that's the correct word. So then Nehru started dismantling it, and Quaid-e-Azam wrote a letter to him, Jawaharlal, no, don't do it. I built that house brick by brick. So you don't have to be mean or petty. You have to be generous, even with your enemies. Be generous. That costs you nothing. So be generous. Be humane as much as you can. So Pakistan was a country which was an absolutely new country, but still people were there who wanted to do something for the country. So that I would now come to the Ratcliffe Award. Ratcliffe was the lawyer who was sent to India to divide India. Ratcliffe had no clue about what India is, and when he came to India,
it was the first time.
Sorry, it was the first time in his life, and then he had an upset stomach because his stomach was not used to Indian water, and most of the time he was taking care of his Delhi belly, and there were people who were on his boundary commission, people like Krishna Menon, people like Mahachan Mahajan and others who were influencing him. There was Lord Mountbatten, who was breathing down his neck, and there was no formal announcement of how India is going to be divided at the time Pakistan came into being. And this was a mean trick, because you see, this is the area which actually allows India road access to Kashmir. This was the road from Pathankot going to Katwa. So 3 important districts in Gurdaspur, Muslim majority, were given to India. And it also happened with many headwaters. For example, the Firozpur headworks was given to India. Again, if you are interested, there's an official biography of Lord Mountbatten by Philip Ziegler. I have a personal copy at home. He said that he actually did that. Mountbatten actually played away. Therefore, after he came to Pakistan, Lahore in November 1947, but after that Pakistan refused again, don't send that rascal to our country anymore. Pakistan did not allow him to come to Pakistan anymore, because we thought that he played a very, very dirty role in everything. He also pressurized Quaid-e-Azam. He said, make me the joint governor general of both India and Pakistan. He said, no, I don't want you as my governor general. Then they said, okay, have one army, don't divide the army. The Quaid said, no, I want my own army. Until November 47, the army, whatever the army was divided, they were taking orders from the Supreme Headquarters in Delhi, which was being commanded by Auchinleck. So that is why, again, I'll come to, that is why Gracie refused to send forces to Kashmir when the Quaid told him to send. So, okay, this Boundary Commission awarded 3 key tehsils of Gurdaspur district to India, despite the fact that 2 of them had Muslim. And this has been dwelt in length in the disputed legacy of Alastair Lamb. Please read it if you want to understand your case of Kashmir. अगर कश्मीर का मुकदमा आप लोग सही मायनों में जानना चाहते हैं, तो you should know the details of what happened, how intrigue and machinations took place to deny us a legitimate claim over Kashmir. So this gave the vital road link to India. First war in Kashmir, there was a popular revolt in Poonch. Poonch is an area which would supply a lot of soldiers to the army, because they were the Southern Kashmiris, they were warlike people. Many of them had joined the British Army in Second World War, and they were demobilized after the Second World War, and they knew how to fight. So Poonchis rose in rebellion, and there was an uprising in Gilgit-Baltistan. So this is the story. Not many people know about it. Many people dispute it also, that there was this young man, 24-year-old Major Willie Brown, who was the commandant of Gilgit Scouts, and because Gilgit Scouts were all Muslims, so they said, they rose in rebellion. What happened at the time of independence was that paramount seal lapsed, that the British Crown ceased to exercise control over princely states, and as a result of that, the lease agreement, so the Dogras believe, the lease agreement between the British Indian government and the Dogra Maharaja also ceased to exist. So what they did, they sent a regent of theirs by the name of Brigadier Ghansara Singh to Gilgit to regain control. And the Gilgit Scouts rose in rebellion, and William Brown happened to find themselves over there. I do not know why did he rebel, whether it was out of an instinct of self-preservation or whether he had the tacit approval of the governor of NWFP, whose name was Lord Cunningham, who was an old hand in this area who knew what was the dynamics of this area. But the fact is that he sided with the Gilgit Scouts. The Gilgitis and others have other claims. They said the role of Major William Brown has been overplayed. They say that we were the ones who did it. There's a friend of mine who's a platoon mate of mine, whose father, Colonel Hassan, then Major Hassan, they say that he was the liberator of our areas. If you go to Gilgit and you go to Chinar Bagh, they have a monument erected in his favor. But then Colonel Hassan later became highly politicized. He was imprisoned also. He was part of the conspiracy case, Pindi conspiracy case. Another thing, to make cut a long story short, the Gilgit Scouts were able to clear up a lot of area, and whatever we have now, the major area, Gilgit-Baltistan, were liberated by the Kashmiris themselves. There was this fellow Brigadier Aslam Khan, brother of Air Marshal Asghar Khan, who was also part of the Kashmir forces, Kashmir state forces. So they were not all Gilgit Scouts. For example, Hassan Khan was not part of Gilgit Scout. He was part of the Kashmir state forces. So Kashmir state forces, part of the Maharaja's army and the Gilgit Scouts, they all joined forces and they were able to liberate a lot of area. The time it was, things were moving at a very fast pace. Things were happening very quickly. Pakistan Army was not the Pakistan Army that you see now. At the time of independence, it was spread all over. And another thing that I would like to bring to your notice is that in the Indian Army, there was not a single unit which was completely Muslim. They would have companies, one company, Dogras, Sikhs, Punjabi Musalman, Pathan tribesmen. In my own unit at the time of independence, there was no, although they knew that it's going to become part of Pakistan, there were other nations there. And you would be surprised to know that our first commanding officer was not a Muslim, because you did not have as many Muslim officers of that rank. He was a Dogra, Parmeshwar Nath. Our first CO, the first CO of my battalion at the time of independence was a Dogra. It was after some time that they were able to find out somebody. And all these officers at that time were very junior officers. Ayub Khan was a full colonel. Yahya Khan was a lieutenant colonel. They were all very junior officers. But because there was suddenly an army to take over, army to command, these people were given accelerated promotions. They became brigadiers and generals and all that stuff. So there was a popular revolt in Poonch. There was uprising in Baltistan. There were raiders. Tribesmen and soldiers live in Kashmir. So they were moving through Rawalpindi and Abbottabad and Uri, etc. And they were moving from into Kashmir from this side. And further north, there was this Gilgit-Baltistan, and south there was this rebellion in Poonch. And on 26 October 1947, the Indian Army lands in. So that is, we commemorate as the Black Day. And we are of the opinion that the Maharaja of Kashmir had not signed the instrument of accession, and they just went in over there. They flew in through Dakotas because the road route was, because it was an onset of winter also, October, the Panjal Pass starts closing down and all this stuff. So they rushed troops and they landed in Srinagar, and the tribesmen had already arrived at the fringes of Srinagar airport. Tribesmen and the Muslim, the officers, Pakistan Army officers who were on leave. So the tribesmen they were ragtag groups. They were not trained to fight a regular war. They did not have artillery to support them. They did not have air to support them. Some of them might also be interested in grabbing up a bit of booty over here, tribal instinct. Most of them had ancient rifles. Some of them did not have rifles. They were just equipped with daggers and stuff. So Then this dubious instrument of accession. If you go through the book of Alistair Lamb, he claims that if the instrument of accession was signed, most probably it was signed on the 27th of October. That's why I want you to read that book. Please read it carefully. That's what Alistair Lamb says. In any case, the instrument of accession for a very long time, nobody knew where the instrument of accession is. Now they claim that there is an instrument of accession. Initially, nobody knew if there was really an instrument of accession. And then India was the one who took the issue to the United Nations in 1948, December 19. They took Pakistan did not take the issue. They wanted some kind of resolution on Kashmir. And after the so-called accession of Kashmir, Mountbatten said that we will hold a referendum. We will hold. I'll come to that also. So about these soldiers on leave, I just want to tell you something about them. They thought, because they could not liberate Kashmir, they could, a small portion of land which is adjacent to the valley, a very, very thin sliver of land, which now constitutes Azad Kashmir, they were able to liberate. But since they were not trained, they did not have very little arms, ammunition. Whatever arms and ammunition were coming to them was being bought in the open market, things of that sort. These people were very emotionally attached to the cause of Kashmir. So when things settled down and nothing came of it, and some of them became senior officers in Pakistan Army. For example, Akbar Khan, who at the time of partition was just a lieutenant colonel, he became a major general, and he was made the he was made the chief of the general staff. So all these people were young people, young Turks, very, very young. They had seen battle, they had seen Second World War, they had seen Kashmir War, and they wanted Kashmir to be liberated, to become part of Pakistan. They thought that political leaders, Pakistani political leaders, are not doing their bid in liberating Kashmir, and they also thought that the new leadership of Pakistan Army is not sincere to the cause of Kashmir. So before that, Mountbatten's initial position in Kashmir. Mountbatten, the Governor General of India, replying to the letter of Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir, requesting him to accept accession of Jammu and Kashmir on 27th of October 1947, wrote back, inconsistent with their policy that the case of any state where the issue of accession has been the subject of dispute. Okay, so he realized that this is a subject of dispute, that many Kashmiris, most Kashmiris do not want this kind of status, that they should become part of India. The question of accession should be decided in accordance with the wishes of the people of the state. It is my government's wish, my government, the Indian government. He is now talking as the Governor General of India, not as Viceroy of India, of the British Queen or whatever, British monarch. In accordance with the wishes of the people of the state, it is my government's wish that as soon as law and order have been restored in Kashmir and her soil cleared of the invader. Also, he's now talking of the Pashtuns and army men and the other people as invaders. The question of state succession should be settled by a reference to the people. So this was a consistent position of India to begin with. And even Nehru, I do not know whether I have given that statement of his here, but he also sent a telegram to the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Liaquat Ali Khan. He said, our assurance that we shall withdraw our troops from Kashmir as soon as peace. So he is agreeing that we have sent their forces. He is agreeing that they have sent the Sikhs. Mountbatten is talking about invaders. He is talking about withdrawing own troops. So the evidence points out that everybody knows that they are troops from outside Kashmir who are fighting the war over Kashmir. Okay. Yeah, Mountbatten is talking about invaders. Nehru is talking about withdrawing his own troops. As soon as peace and order is restored, and leave the decision regarding the future of the state to the people of the state, is not merely a promise to your government, but also the people of Kashmir and the world. That's what he said. And then again, there's a statement which I have not incorporated over here, in which he says that we do not want any forced marriages. Okay? So you should know that even the Indian leadership realize that they have occupied Kashmir against the wishes of the people, They may have been an instrument of accession in which the Maharaja may have agreed to give his state to India, but the people were not in agreement with the Maharaja. He did not represent the people. He was just an hereditary ruler. He's over there. When there is a democracy in a country, in our country also, weak democracy, fragile democracy, the people who are sitting on the top can say that we represent the people. Whatever we do is because we have the support of the people. When a king does something, he cannot claim that his people are behind him. So most of the world, most of the countries of the world, even where there are monarchies, there is some kind of democracy. Even in UK, where there is still a monarch, the House of Windsor still rules. The Queen is not the sovereign. Queen is the sovereign, but she does not make decisions. Whatever decisions are made by the Prime Minister. Okay, he or she has the. Yes, please, Bushra.
Can we say that as the Maharaja signed the agreement, so Kashmir was part of India. So
When was Kashmir part of India?
When the Maharaja.
No, it was not part of India. It was an independent princely state.
But the Maharaja was ruler, so he decided.
He decided against the wishes of the people, and even if he signed the so-called instrument of accession, he was doing it in his personal capacity. He was not asking the people of Srinagar or Gandarbal or Islamabad, Anantnag. He did not ask anybody. This was his decision.
Because according to, I think, the third June plan, people of the princely states were supposed to decide the future for themselves.
Yes.
They were the choices were to be made under certain parameters, the geographical location of that particular state and what the people wanted.
Okay.
So
the people had to decide, not the people.
So you see why
People were supposed to decide, but the Maharaja enacts.
People should have decided. They were not supposed to decide. But you see,
So I read.
just if your father wants you to marry someone, he will ask your consent. He will or he will not. I will say, Bushra, idiotic girl, you get married to this idiot. He will not do that. In a modern society, he will ask your consent. Will he not? He can marry you off if he wants, but you can contest it. You can go to a court of law. He said, my father is marrying me against my wishes. So this was a marriage made by the Maharaja without the consent of the people. He married his state to the state of India without the consent of the people.
So, sir, we can say that in Hyderabad, you said India invaded that place, Hyderabad. But we can say that that was Hindu majority place.
Yes, you can say that.
So
that's why
people decided it.
People, in that case, people had also not decided. But that case is closed. The chapter is closed. They moved in with tanks. They said it's going to be a police action, Operation Polo. It's not police action. The army moved in. The army moved in and occupied. Full stop. And Nizam of Hyderabad was the richest man in India. Richest man. At that time, he was the richest man in India. And they usurped everything. He wanted to give a lot of his property to Pakistan. A lot of his wealth was lying in Lloyd's Bank in UK. And Pakistan and India kept contesting. I think the decision made sometime now. I think they said some money to go to Pakistan, the other go to. So the fate of the princely state was a difficult thing, complex thing. The mere fact that these people were surviving as independent rulers was because they were supporting the British. They were there on the throne because the British of British generosity. They owed their allegiance to this. They were granted grand titles and they were authorized gun salutes. If you were a big Maharaja, you had 21 gun salute, things of that sort. And they would contribute their state forces in the world wars that the British waged. So they were quite used to drawing their power from the British who were ruling. They did not have to consult their people. As long as the British were happy with them, they were in power. So they had got used to that kind of independence, dependence on the British. So this was a complex thing. There were many of the people, many of the rulers who opposed the British in 1857 or who stood up to the British lost their fiefdoms or kingdoms. There weren't many. I can't quote. At the top of my head, I cannot tell you if anybody from the ruling elite really stood up to the Maharaja. But one thing we know, that the King of India, the Emperor of India, a very weak person, very old, doddering person who was confined to the Red Fort in Delhi, who would recite poetry and who had concubines, he lost his empire because people, the Hindu sepoys, made him. They said, "You are our emperor. You are the Badshah. You lead a rebellion or whatever freedom movement against the British." He lost. He was the ultimate loser. So many of the Muslims lost their empires, but many of them who sided with the British, they remained in power, and many of them actually became Nawabs because they sided with the British. So they were used. They had no legality, they had no morality. I'm not saying that they were good rulers or bad rulers. You just have to read the history. Nizam of Hyderabad was supposed to be a benevolent ruler. I'm not saying that we do not hear of any atrocities that he committed on the Hindu subjects. The Nawabs of Bhopal were very benevolent people. There was no problem in Bhopal at the time of partition. There were no riots, nothing. The Hindu subjects were taken care of. But Kashmir, the Raja was repressive, very. But you have to read it. This entire complex thing of having 560 princely states who were semi-autonomous is an interesting thing. Pakistan, when Pakistan came into being, also had princely states, and Bahawalpur was the first princely state that said, yes, we are going to be part of Pakistan, and they contributed a lot towards making the government of Pakistan what it is. The Nawab Bahawalpur donated a lot of money. The Nizam of Hyderabad sent a lot of money. Government of Pakistan did not have enough money in their treasury to issue pays for the first time. So sometimes you are thankful to these princely states also. The princely states were also instrumental in making Aligarh Muslim University. People from Wah, they contributed a lot of money. The Nawabs of Bhalpur contributed a lot of money. So they had some good points also. If you did not have the university in Aligarh, this university here would not have come into being. That's the mother university. We do not give credit to Aligarh Muslim University, but that was the first university, first modern place of education for the Muslims, which actually produced your initial leaders. And because of them, you have so many universities in Pakistan now. So there were good things, there were bad things, but Maharajas were autonomous, semi-autonomous, but they were not answerable to their people. What they did, they could do. If they want to say, okay, this much money goes to the government of Pakistan, they could do it. If you want to accede to India, they could do it. They were not referring to their people. But it's an interesting study if you have interest in that subject. Why princely states? What princely states? What did it do? What role did they play in independence? Some of the Raja Sahib Mahmudabad played a leading role in Pakistan movement. He was again a very rich man. He also donated a lot of his wealth to Pakistan. He came to Pakistan, but then he was not happy. He left. He went to the UK. Raja Sahib Mahmudabad, a very big name. So many of them, at the time of independence, played a very positive role also, because they realized at that moment in time that they needed an independent Muslim state. See, where did the money come from for the Pakistan movement? Who gave the money? Qaid-e-Azam said, give me silver bullets. So people were contributing 1 rupee, 1 anna, whatever they had. But where did the money come from? For all major movements, you need money. Many of these monies came from princely rulers. The Muslim League was actually, when it was made in 1906 in Dhaka, Who was the first president of Muslim League? No, no, no. The Nawab of Dhaka, Nawab Salimullah Khan. I do not know whether he also claimed his ancestry from Pashtuns or not. Nawab Salimullah Khan. So there was these famous Nawabs of Dhaka who contributed a lot of money. So whoever was an elite, whoever belonged to the higher strata of life, they thought that this was a necessity, because if India is going to become independent, there must be some future for their children. If there was somebody who understood it, he sided with Pakistan or India or whatever they thought was in the best interest of the faith that they were subscribing to, or the ethnicity or whatever. It's a complex phenomena, and if one of you is interested in trying to get to the bottom of that all, do it. It may be a fascinating study.
Excuse me, sir. So back in 1947, this statement, was it like a genuine proposition or a genuine promise, or was it a hoax?
What do you say?
I mean, as of now, it feels like a hoax, but to see if this was true, then to say that Congress, that some people of the Congress were also supporting referendum in Kashmir?
Nobody was supporting a referendum in Kashmir, but these were the statements which came out from the Indian.
Which was not true.
So this was more of a sop to people. Don't worry, we will hold a referendum. They were never true. They were never true to the promises. And there were people who were very hawkish in Nehru's inner circle. One was Krishna Menon, then there was Vallabhbhai Patel. They have erected a huge monument for him in one of the tallest monument in India.
In the world, yes.
In the world, probably. Vallabhbhai Patel was very, very anti-Muslim, anti-Pakistan, and people like Vallabhbhai Patel, etc., actually pushed Jinnah into a corner. Jinnah was never a person who would say, yes, because I'm a Muslim, I should have a separate state. He was a very balanced man. He was, if you can say, if you can permit me or allow me to say that, he was a secular person. He was a very secular man, but he was forced to don the sherwani and shalwar and wear the Jinnah cap to show his Muslim identity, because he was pushed to the wall. If you want to read how the Hindus actually disabused the Quaid-e-Azam from the notion of a joint statehood, read the book Jaswant Singh.
Jaswant Singh, मैं उसी के पूछ रही थी क्योंकि उसी की book खोली मैंने.
Jaswant Singh. What does it say?
It's in Jinnah, India, Partition, Independence.
Absolutely. Jaswant Singh book, it's very, although Jaswant Singh is also a hardliner. Jaswant Singh is a hardliner, but the book he wrote, he says his primary thesis is that if Nehru and Vallabhbhai Patel and others had not been so short-sighted, India would have been the biggest Muslim country in the world.
Yeah.
That is his thesis. He said, we lost Pakistan, we lost the Muslims because we did not give them what they were asking for, so they decided to go. So Gandhi's initial position on Kashmir. So this is a fellow by the name Pandit Premnath Bazaz. He has also written a book on Kashmir. He is known to be the leading proponent on Kashmir. He's a historian, journalist, and when he inquired from Gandhi by letter what the Maharaja of Kashmir should do when majority of his subjects are Muslims, in his reply dated 5th May 1934, Gandhi replied, knowing that Kashmir predominantly Musalman, it is one day bound to become a Musalman state. Therefore, a Hindu prince can rule it only by not ruling, that is, doing as the Musalmans want him to do, or by expedient is more than I can judge from the history of the struggle, whatever. This book is from the history of the struggle of Kashmir in Kashmir by Pandit Premnath Bazaz. So if you can read this book, this is a very interesting book. Pandit Premnath Bazaz, he was a Hindu Pandit, and he wrote this book, and he was also saying that Muslims should have been consulted, Kashmir should have been given its right, because India is ruling Kashmir by suppression, by brute force. This is not a new book, this is a very old book by Pandit Premnath Bazaz. Do read it if you get a time. So Article 360 of the Indian Constitution, I want you to know this. Article 370 of the Indian Constitution granted special status to Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir. What happened at the time of independence was that Sheikh Abdullah was propped as the first chief minister of Kashmir, the Kashmir occupied by India, and his title was Sadr Wazarat. And this was a special article in the Indian Constitution which gave autonomous status to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. This was temporary, transitional and special provisions. The Constitutional Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir after its establishment was empowered to recommend the articles of the Indian Constitution that should be applied to the state or to abrogate the Article 370 altogether. Article 370 is still there. It has been watered down. It has actually lost its identity. Several generations of leaders have tried to distort or disfigure this special status. The special status says that nobody can buy property in Kashmir. Nobody who is not a native of Kashmir is allowed to buy property in Kashmir.
Something जिसको अभी जिसके लिए they have freedom votes, basically जो अभी कश्मीरीज का चल रहा है, they are like इसको abolish करना चाह रहे हैं Indian.
Indians करना चाह रहे हैं. जब मोदी पावर में आया, तो first thing that Modi wanted was that he should win enough votes in occupied Kashmir to be able to actually abrogate this Article 370. And he wanted, when he came into power about nearly 4 years ago, the famous rallying cry was that he wanted 44 plus votes in occupied territory, in the elections held in occupied territory. And the party who was supporting, was a partner of BJP, was PDP, People's Democratic. Now Mehbooba Mufti, and at that time by Mufti Mehboob or something, our father, who died, and then she had to take over as the chief minister.
So, but her stance is also kind of pro-Indian, I feel like.
Who?
Mehbooba Mufti's.
She is absolutely pro-Indian. That's what I'm saying.
That is why they were supporting those 44 votes.
They didn't get it. They wanted the PDP and BJP combined to get 44 plus votes, so they could abrogate, but they could not even get that. And you know that the elections that are held in the occupied valley are always held under coercion. They are not fair. They are not open. Most of the time they are rigged. And I'm going to come to the 1990 first insurrection in Kashmir, which I witnessed close quarters because I was deployed on the line of control. It was because the Kashmiris said that the 1989 elections that were held were completely rigged, totally rigged. And what the Indians have been propagating all these years, they said that, look, we are holding elections regularly. The chief minister is elected fairly and squarely, so there is no reason for the Kashmiris to exercise their right of self-determination. They said, it's happening, elections are happening regularly, people are getting elected, there's a Constituent Assembly of Kashmir, they have their own chief minister, so what's the problem? So this has been their main argument.
So the large number of Kashmiris don't even vote.
They don't vote. They're forced to go to the polling booths. The elections that are held are rigged, massively rigged. So all those things are there. But this is the argument that the Indian government uses. Why? They say the Kashmir is a closed issue. For them, it's a closed issue. They don't want to discuss it. We are holding elections over there. So why do we want a referendum? This is a referendum. People are voting. Otherwise, people will not vote. But it's a fact that people have to be, if they vote, they are actually literally brought on gunpoint to the polling booths. So this is the argument that they use usually. Elections are held. Why do you want referendum? So I just want to tell you the number of UNSCR resolutions, United Nations Security Council resolutions on Kashmir. So this is the entire list. So what I want to tell you is that there have been regular mention of Kashmir till 1964. Initially, in the first 10 or maybe 20 years, there was some movement internationally to resolve the Kashmir issue diplomatically. So there were a number of resolutions, and I'm going to show you some text of some of the resolutions also. So these were the first, this was the first, 38, 39, 47, 40, 51, 1948, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is one of the oldest issues on the United Nations agenda. United Nations came into being in 1945, okay, after the Second World War. And two issues were presented before the United Nations. One was the Palestine issue and the other was the Kashmir issue.
Both exception lists.
So,
India and Israel, both exception lists.
yeah, right. So they defy international norms. They can get away with blue murder. So these are all the resolutions which were passed from time to time, 50, 51, 52, 57, 57. And then this was a proposal in respect of Jammu Kashmir made by General MacNaughton. He was a Canadian in 1949, and the resolution adopted by the United Nations Commission for India and Pakistan, UNCIP, on 5th of January 1949. So in 1949, the United Nations had formed this commission, United Nations Commission on India and Pakistan. It failed, and Joseph Corpel was part of this mission. Resolution adopted by UNCIP on 13th of August 1948, and statement of President UNSC on 18th May 1964. 1965 the war took place, 65 war, and after that this issue has become a non-issue, or it has been put on the back burner, and many times efforts have been made to actually scrap it from the UNSC agenda. The Indians have failed so far to do that. They want to actually throw it into the dustbin of history. This is a closed issue. India does not discuss it, and they said that because of Shimla Agreement in 1973, we do not want to discuss it with you. So I will tell you about that also. So this is UNSCR 39, adopted on January 20th, 1948, offered to assist in the peaceful resolution of Kashmir conflict by setting up a commission of 3 members, one to be chosen by India, one to be chosen by Pakistan, third to be chosen by the other 2 members of the commission. The commission was to write a joint letter advising the Security Council on what course of action should be best to help further peace in the region. A ceasefire was achieved by the commission at the beginning of 1949. However, truce was not achieved due to disagreements over the process of demilitarization. So this has been a big issue, demilitarization. Indians have got 700,000 troops in occupied Kashmir. We have got a lot of army in our part of Kashmir and northern areas. So demilitarization, nobody is willing to demilitarize. How do you do that? It can be done, and I say that if we are really honest about it, we must have plans. Either we should create enough civil law enforcement agencies to maintain law and order, if in case the army is told to withdraw. So this is a basic issue. This has always been a basic issue, demilitarization. How to demilitarize? Okay. After considerable efforts, the commission was declared its failure in December 1949. And this is UNSCR 47, easy to remember because this is the year of our independence as well. April 21, 48. The council increased the size of the commission, established under 39. Included representatives from these countries. And the commission was instructed to go to the subcontinent to help the governments of India and Pakistan to restore peace and order in the region and prepare for a plebiscite to decide the fate of Kashmir. Joseph Corwell was part of this commission. Secondly, the resolution recommended a 3-step process for the resolution of the dispute. This is important. In the first step, Pakistan was asked to withdraw all its nationals from Kashmir. All its nationals from Kashmir. No?
This is very. How can you withdraw all your nationals and
You
then
can withdraw your
claim-
forces, of
Yeah,
course.
exactly, your forces,
Nationals.
but not.
But
your
this is what it said. So what happens now in case demilitarization, if we are serious, if people say, okay, let's decide the fate of Kashmir, I don't think anybody is going to demilitarize now. It has been 70 years now. The trenches are there, the bunkers are there. It can still be done. I don't know. Things can still happen. Miracles can happen. But at that time, when they say all nationals of Pakistan, they thought that people who are in Kashmir at that moment are all either soldiers or part of the Lashkars, or that is. So this can be amended. You see, if it's such an old resolution, you can always amend it. Second step, India was asked to progressively reduce its forces to the minimum level required. What is the minimum level? First, Pakistan withdraws. Because
Pakistan withdraws the nationals. India is asked to withdraw just to minimize, reduce the number of forces. That's it. That's very.
So who is going to maintain the law and order? So this has to be changed, and I think later on it was agreed also that this is probably an unfair. This is an unfair clause, and this should be revised and all that. But you should understand what was initially principally agreed. Okay. In the third step, India was asked to appoint a plebiscite administrator nominated by the UN who would conduct a free and impartial plebiscite. So at one point in time, a plebiscite administrator was also nominated. He was Fleet Admiral Nimitz of the United States Navy. Nimitz, Charles Nimitz, Fleet Admiral of the United States Navy. He was actually appointed as plebiscite administrator. So this was totally agreed. Nobody objected to it. India and Pakistan had their observations against it, but that notwithstanding. No, they did not say we don't agree to it. This is, see, what the UN Security Council resolution adopts. There are 5 permanent members of UN Security Council. Pakistan is not a member of. India is not a member of UN Security. Whatever is decided by the United Nations Security Council is to be accepted by all members. They are non-permanent members also. But basically, these 5 members who make the decisions. If many of them do not agree, that state will veto the resolution. Whatever the General Assembly decides, it's not applicable. It's not binding. That's the correct word. It's not binding. But whatever UN Security Council says, it's binding. It's binding. You can turn around and say, I don't accept it. That's another thing. But UN Security Council resolutions are binding on all member states. Okay, you can say, okay, we are leaving the UN organization. We don't want to be part of the United Nations. Who stops you? You can leave the UN if you think that things are going against you. That's a worst case scenario. But you always have friends in the UN. You have among the permanent members. Who's a friend of Pakistan? China is a friend of Pakistan. So this was UNSCR 91, adopted in March 30, 1951, noting a report by Sir Owen Dixon. Owen Dixon was an Australian judge. Okay, I have deliberately put it over here because I want to tell you about the Owen Dixon plan also. UN representative of India and Pakistan, stating that the main points of difference of preparing the state of Jammu and Kashmir for holding the plebiscite were as follows: the procedure for an extent of demilitarization, the degree of control over the exercise of the functions of the government necessary to ensure a free and fair plebiscite. So obviously there were problems too, but these are things which can be got over with. It's not necessary that you cannot do things that you don't want. If the Afghans are talking, the Taliban are supposedly anti-women, or they are supposedly grounded in the Sharia laws. They want things to go to according to a certain Islamic way, but they're talking to females also, they're talking to the Afghan opposition also. So if the political will is there, then everything can be done. It's not that things cannot move forward or things cannot be done. So phases in the conflict in Kashmir. So I just wanted to tell you this. First war took place in 47-48, after which the issue went to the United Nations, and then there was a period in which there were diplomatic initiatives in the UN. The countries wanted, and the one reason for this was that the United States of America, which is the main financier of United Nations, wanted this area to be peaceful, because they did not want this area to become a hotbed of communism. They did not want Russia the Soviet Union at that time, to have influence over this area. So there was a lot of diplomatic activity to begin with. And then Pakistan had become part of the Western camp in the Cold War. So up till 64, there was a lot of diplomatic activity and a lot of activity within the United Nations as well. Then there was a second Kashmir war in 1965 and Tashkent Agreement. So second war in Kashmir, how did it take place? What happened was, in 1962, there was a war between China and India. And Pandit Nehru appealed for help to the Americans. Although Pandit Nehru was India at that time was part of the non-aligned movement, there were so-called non-aligned movements, but they were very close to the Soviet Union. Khrushchev had visited Kashmir in 1954, and he had said, "You just have to shout, and we will come to your help." and they used to veto all the resolutions on Kashmir which were favorable to Pakistan. That was the stance of the USSR. So when that happened, and around that time the Chinese also conducted their first nuclear test, and Nehru actually wrote desperate letters to Kennedy, and he's, please give me nuclear guarantees, please send me your own planes, please send me your own pilots. There is a book I would recommend if you want to read it. It's written by Bruce Riedel, not a pro-Pakistani person, but it's about JFK and his forgotten crisis. I've got a personal copy. I don't know whether we have a copy in the library or not, but if you're really, really, really interested, please do read it. It's very interesting. Bruce Riedel, JFK and his forgotten crisis. So what happened, and in that he mentions the letters that Nehru wrote desperately to Kennedy, asking for military help, all kinds of help, nuclear umbrella, everything. It's there, it's written by an American. So Pakistan thought at that moment in time, and after 65 war, America just turned off the tap. Up till that time, they were giving military aid to Pakistan. Pakistan was one of the countries which was part of the overall containment, part of the containment policy of how to contain the communist forces. They turned off the tap, but Pakistan was the one which suffered most. And after I'm jumping. After the Sino-Indian conflict, there was a feeling that the Americans are now turning towards India, and they will in the future they are not going to support Pakistan. India has always been their first love. They initially wanted to woo India. Pandit Nehru at that time was even before Liaquat Ali Khan went to India. United States. It was Nehru who went to India, but his visit to India, his visit to the United States was a disaster. He said, "I'm going to be non-aligned," stuff like that. So now the people in Pakistan, the leaders in Pakistan, thought that this thing is going to be put on the back burner. So Bhutto said that we should revive this movement, and that is how Operation Gibraltar was launched. The infiltrators were sent before the war broke out on 6th of September. 1st of August, the infiltrators were sent. There were people who were Kashmiris, belonged to the Azad Kashmir irregular forces. There were people who had fought the war in Second World War, veterans of Second World War. They were all sent in to raise lashkars and increase the heat in the occupied valley. And before that, there had been some incidents which had taken place. For example, there was this holy relic of the Prophet, his piece of his hair, which was lying. It was called Mu'e Mubarak, which was lying in a mausoleum in Hazrat Bal. It was reportedly stolen. So people were otherwise a little upset and all. So they wanted to build up on this sentiment, or anti-Indian sentiment in the occupied valley. Anyhow, Pakistan sent in the infiltrators. India responded by opening up the international border, and this war was fought. And this, although Pakistan wanted this Kashmir issue to be revived, the only thing we could do was Tashkent Agreement. Tashkent Agreement took place. It was signed by President Ayub Khan and Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri. And even before the ink dried on the document, Shastri died there in Tashkent. And in this, they had agreed that, okay, we'll resolve our issues. Kashmir is an issue which needs to be resolved. That was a major takeaway. But since Shastri was dead, the new Prime Minister was Indira Gandhi, who was until then a very junior cabinet member. She was certainly catapulted into the Prime Minister house, and she was a hawk. She did not want any Kashmir resolution. So Tashkent and this was then manipulated by Mr. Bhutto. He said that Ayub Khan had sold out on our military victory of 65 war. I think he made a political capital out of it, political issue out of it. So Ayub Khan also lost in the long run because of this agreement in Tashkent. So there were losers all around because of the Tashkent Agreement. So then 1971 there was a war in East Pakistan, because in 65 the war was fought in West Pakistan, and at that time Pakistan's policy was the defense of the West lies in, defense of East lies in the West. So all the forces were there. There was just a small infantry division in East Pakistan, and the East Pakistanis said that if we have to fend for ourselves, then why not go away from Pakistan? We can have in the famous 6 points that Sheikh Mujibur Rahman proposed. In that they said that we should be allowed to have our own militias. They said, okay, you can keep defense or currency and foreign policy, etc. with you, but rest we should be autonomous. We should have some kind of civil defense for ourselves. We should be having their own militias things. So this one of the reasons for 71 war was 1965 war. The East Pakistanis thought that, among many other reasons, they thought that probably the West Pakistanis are more concerned about themselves. They're there to defend Lahore. They are not worried about Dhaka. So, and after that, there was similar agreement in 1973 between Mr. Bhutto and Mrs. Indira Gandhi, and a number of decisions were taken. They said, okay, this ceasefire line is going to be called the line of control. And there's a book by J.N. Dixit about the Indian foreign policy, a very interesting book if you read it. And he said Mr. Bhutto had assured Mrs. Gandhi that, okay, I'll go back home and I'll create a suitable environment in which the line of control will be accepted as a de facto border. Just want to say something?
And they made this issue, there was this clause that said that this issue is now a bilateral issue, and according to the Indian lawyers, they think that when an issue is considered to be bilateral, all the UN resolutions pertaining to that issue are nullified.
This is a wrong argument. That's the Indians say that. Yes, exactly. Pakistan does not agree to it. They say that. Don't agree to this. Yeah, Pakistan says that even if it's now a bilateral issue, it does not mean that the UN resolutions, the multilateral resolutions, are null and void. Nowhere in the world it says that the UN resolutions have been declared void. So yes, we will sit together, we'll decide but the initial UN resolution, as for Pakistani narratives, are still very much in place. Yes, please.
Yeah, this is what I was reading, what you have said now.
Okay.
That
So
it
it's clear.
doesn't undermine the position of you.
Absolutely. So people were trying to pursue the case of Kashmir in their own ways. They were not sleeping over it. A point that you brought out, that why people keep asking the young generation that you have to do something. Pakistani people, or people who wanted Kashmir to be liberated, or some solution to be brought. There have been several diplomatic initiatives by several governments in which they have tried to. I can quote you. There were Bhutto Swaran Singh discussions. There was this famous parleys between the Indian Foreign Secretary Salman Haider and Pakistani Foreign Secretary Shamshad Ahmad, in which substantial progress was made. And there have been several occasions when the Prime Ministers have met and talked about Kashmir. It is only now that they are not talking about Kashmir. But initially there have been several proposals, several initiatives to resolve outstanding issues, in which Kashmir always was at the top of the list. Pakistan has several issues with India, the delineation of the line of control in Siachen, the Sar Creek issue. There are several issues, but the major sticking point, the major area of conflict is Kashmir, and Pakistan wants it to be resolved. Everybody knows Kashmir ought to be resolved. Indians also know it because there is a lot of unrest in India. There are cost of conflicts that even India has to bear. We have, being a smaller country, our cost of conflict is much larger. And they know also that the so-called terrorism would continue. We say it's not terrorism, it's a legitimate freedom struggle that is happening. This is disputed territory, and the people of Kashmir, occupied Kashmir, have their right to self-determination, and whatever their voices must be heard, which India is not prepared to hear. So, first indigenous right uprising in 1990. So this happened after the, as I was explaining, 1989 elections. Many people rose up in rebellion, and they started moving towards Pakistan across the border. And here they started preparing and going back and fighting against the Indians. So this movement, Pakistan was totally taken aback. Pakistan was not prepared for it, because it was spontaneous uprising, and the people wanted something to happen in Kashmir. So Pakistan was actually pulled into this uprising in 1990. This is redundant. Uprising should not be there. So then there were nuclear blasts in 1998 by Indians, followed by the nuclear blast of Pakistan, and followed by Kargil in 1999. So these are various milestones or markers in the Kashmir struggle. Then after 1999 Kargil war, Nawaz Sharif government was unseated by General Musharraf, and he came into power, and he tried, although he was supposed to be the Kargil of, he was supposed to be the architect of Kargil, and initially the Indians did not trust him, but he tried in his ways.
Four-point agenda.
He had his famous 4-point agenda. And then he went to Agra also in 2001, where he tried to pursue this case, but he could not do it. And then there was this military stand of 2002, because after 2001, we know 2001 is a famous year because in September 2001 there was this famous attack on the Twin Towers, and India thought that this was a time to capitalize on the international sentiment led by the US against non-state actors. They could use this argument that anybody who wants independence or who's not so-called state actor is considered to be a non-state actor, therefore a terrorist. So they applied the same argument against the Kashmiris also, and they brought their forces onto the border. And I was still in the army then, and I know that for about 10-11 months we were in eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation with Indians. So it subsided because of a lot of nuclear signaling on each side. Pakistan also fired missiles and stuff like that. There were nuclear threats which were heard, and at the end of the day, it was actually the American companies who told India that, why are you turning this into a battlefield? Why do you want a nuclear war to take place? And they said, we are going to leave India. And after that warning, not because Pakistan was using missiles, that the Indians climbed down from their high horse. And then this is the second indigenous movement started in 2016. And this happened because the Indians did not, particularly after Modi came into power, the repression increased. Okay, in all this while, there were a number of people who were trying to be the leaders of Kashmiri movement, and they were in disparate groups. So they were combined together, lumped together, these various parties in the Hurriyat Tehreek. There were 26, 27 people. Some of them were important, some of them were less important. People like Yasin Malik or Sayyid Ali Gilani or Mir Waiz Umar Farooq. So they all were lumped together or clubbed together in the Hurriyat Tehreek. But this what is happening now, 2016, it's not because any Hurriyat leader is commanding them. It's young boys.
It's the people themselves.
People themselves, young people, educated people, PhD candidates. And this has moved out to Srinagar. This has gone to the small towns, villages where people have stood up, and they are not being supplied by anybody. They are not being supported by anybody. They are throwing stones. Most of them are pelting stones. They're being brutally replaced with pellet guns. They're being fired upon indiscriminately. They're losing their eyesight. They're being killed. They're being raped. So all kinds of dirty methods are being used to. So this is an ongoing struggle. It's still ongoing. What comes of it is anybody's guess. We can discuss it. Possible solutions. Possible solutions. There was this Owen Dixon plan for regional plebiscite. Owen Dixon, the Australian judge, had said that, okay, hold regional plebiscites. So what he was trying to say was that this could be a face-saving way for India and Pakistan. One presumed that people would vote in favor of Pakistan in the valley, occupied valley. People may vote in favor of India in Jammu, and Ladakh, it could be either way. So this would, and Gilgit-Baltistan and what is Azad Kashmir, obviously that would go to Pakistan. So that what he was recommending was this is a way of actually a face-saving way. Pakistan gets some part, India gets some part, and this is how, but nobody agreed to his plan. Then there was a Chenab formula. Area north of River Chenab belongs to Pakistan and the area south of it to India. So this was another plan, and Musharraf also tried to propose this plan to India. And then there was Musharraf's own 4-point solution. what he was recommending was soft border, line of control to be made irrelevant, people allowed to move freely. And then this bus service was also started between intra-Kashmir bus service, in which people of either side. There was also Kashmir trade, barter trade, which people could sell things across the line of control. So these were people-to-people context, things of that. Then he said self-governance, autonomous status, not independence, self-governance to Jammu and Kashmir along with Pakistan occupied Kashmir for internal management in all areas like trade, tourism, waters, etc. to maximize social economic developments of the region through cooperation. But most of the people in our part of Kashmir do not agree to it. They said we were actually, India would have not keeping its part of the bargain, and this would have been a self-inflicted wound. But
So
this was a...
I'm sorry. If this was to happen, then Kashmir would be dominion like Pakistan and India was?
I don't know. I don't know what would be the political status of it. I do not know. This was something which was left to discussion and conjecture and dominion. Whose dominion? Pakistan's dominion? India's dominion? I don't know. But there have been several ways in which there have been countries which have had the status of UN trusteeship. For example, after the Second World War, there were areas which were occupied by the losing powers, Axis power. For example, Somalia. This became a UN trustee territory, and the Italians who actually lost the war were made the trustees of the United Nations to govern Somalia till the time that they could decide their own status, vote for themselves. So I do not know what would the political status of that place. Perhaps it could have been under UN administration. It could have been under the administration of the OIC. It could have been a local arrangement. Okay, state of Kashmir, but not independent. How can you do that? I do not know. But people who know international rules, laws, they could have come up with a solution. Even now, in case of India, Bhutan and Sikkim are two countries which are part of SAARC, but they're not really independent. They are very much dependent on India, although they have their own kings, etc. When you have this SAARC conference, you see these people, Buddhists wearing their different kinds of robes, standing there with the heads of states. They're not totally independent. So some kind of arrangement could have been done. What kind of arrangement? I do not know what Mr. Musharraf had in mind. But if you read Khurshid Mehmood Qasuri's book, Neither a Dove Nor a Hawk, he says that this thing was almost decided. You can talk to Mr. Qasuri. He lives in Lahore. You can go and interview him. According to him, it was almost a decided thing that both India and Pakistan almost decided before there was a popular movement against Mr. Musharraf here, the lawyers' movement, and then he was thrown out. Troops to be withdrawn from the region in a phased manner. Troops to be withdrawn, again a very delicate thing to do. A joint supervising mechanism to supervise the implementation of such a roadmap for Kashmir. This comprises of Indian, Pakistani and Kashmiri representatives. So how to do it? I don't know. But the conference on Kashmir that we held, people said that this 4-point formula can be revived, and because there was so much repression, so much bloodshed, there was so much killing that is going on there, so much rape. There must be some solution to it. If not the conventional hardline positions of India and Pakistan, India says it's a done deal, no talking on Kashmir, no dialogue in Kashmir, it is their integral part, it's their two-tongue, and Pakistan insisting that no plebiscite must be held. This is one way in which perhaps both countries can arrive at a solution in which Kashmiris, the main stakeholders, become autonomous. For example, people in Gilgit-Baltistan also are very much against the current existing situation. They said that we are suffering because of Pakistani government does not agree to a solution to Kashmir, and we are still being considered part of Kashmir. Otherwise, the people in Gilgit-Baltistan want to become part of Pakistan and want to live as Pakistani citizens. So
They can't vote either.
They can't vote either. So this is a problem. The current situation in Kashmir, more than 700 troops deployed in Kashmir under Northern Command, their Northern Command, which comprises 14 corps, 15 corps and 16 corps. Law enforcement agencies are empowered with Armed Forces Special Powers Act, AFSPA, in Kashmir since 1990. So they can do anything. They can kill, they can rape, they can get away with it. They cannot be tried in any court of law. Yeah. Sorry?
Extrajudicial.
They can extradition. Nobody can check them. They have special powers. Since the killing of Burhan Wani in 2016, the uprising in Kashmir has gained momentum. So this is the young person, Burhan Wani, and these are the two stamps that Pakistan issued, which the Indians took offense to or used it as an excuse not to meet Pakistani delegates. Occupation forces are using pellet guns and other brutal means, including rape, to suppress the movement for Azadi. So the rallying cry is Azadi. You see them waving Pakistani flags. You see their dead bodies wrapped up in Pakistani flags, which are being sent to for burial. So stance of the Indian government: no dialogue with Pakistan or Kashmir. They fire across the line of control. They kill the civilians because we have not actually. We do not stop our citizens from living on the border of, on the line of control. India has actually withdrawn their people. So when they fire, our people get killed. And they keep threatening us with surgical strikes across the line of control. And there is a crackdown in Kashmir. So these are the four things which the Indian government is doing. And stance of the current government on relations with Kashmir. Initially, Imran Khan offered the talks at foreign minister level at the sidelines of the UN General Assembly annual summit, which is held in September, and the Indians agreed to it initially, but
at the end उन्होंने इनकार कर दिया.
And with very baseless and stupid excuses, because they said this is the evil agenda of Imran Khan. What evil agenda? He was saying, talk to us. So initially tried to. So most of the time, even Nawaz Sharif wanted to talk to them. He went and attended the swearing in of Modi. And then Pakistan opened up the Kartarpur corridor as a stop to this thing. At least do something, at least make some move. And even then, this was also rejected, almost rejected by the Indian government. And people say that whenever Indian election is there, no Indian government wants to appear weak to Pakistan. Before Pakistan, no Indian government wants to show that they're willing to talk to Pakistan. They want to show that we are very hard, we are very, we can stand up, and we are not going to listen to Pakistan. So I do not know what happens after the May elections, whether Modi remains there, whether Modi is not there, but this is my experience of India-Pakistan relations, that whoever is in government in Delhi, very few times that somebody is actually willing to talk to you. I think Morarji Desai, who also once upon a time was a very hardliner, he wanted to talk to you. Narasimha Rao, although he was a hardliner, BJP, he came to Lahore, his famous bus yatra. But most of the time, Indian leaders do not want to talk to you. So there are verbal spats and diplomatic rows. We keep calling each other's high commissioners to the foreign ministry and issuing them demarches, telling them you are harassing our nationals, or you are talking nonsense. So this thing is continuing. There's no visible movement between India and Pakistan. There's no diplomatic movement there, and nobody in the world wants to act as a mediator or arbitrator in case of India and Pakistan, because they know that India does not want to talk. So Foreign Minister Qureshi attended the meeting on Kashmir in British Parliament. This is the latest thing which has happened, and even that Indians also opposed this particular movement. So things have been moving internationally. There have been reports by the Office of the High Commissioner on Human Rights, the UN High Commissioner on Human Rights, Hussain Al-Rafai, which was an indictment against Indian atrocities in Kashmir. There has been an OIC committee which has issued. There's been a UK parliamentary report, and all these things have happened last year, in which they have said that the atrocities are being committed in Kashmir. And a few years before that, there was a EU report, and all these things are available online, which called Kashmir the most beautiful prison in the world. So the world, the independent organizations agree to gross human rights violations in Kashmir. But what is an end to it? Would we let this continue to happen? Whether we would continue just showing banners to the world or our own citizens that this is what is happening? For example, on 5th of February, you know, all the roads in our capital were emblazoned with banners showing gross human rights violations which are being committed by the Indian occupation forces, faces of women crying, women and young men and children disfigured by pellet guns and all that stuff. Will we continue doing that, or do we have some plan to actually? So this was the latest thing which happened. He attended a meeting in Kashmir, and again which various groups said that yes, atrocities are being taken. What are going to be the takeaways from Foreign Minister Qureshi's participation in this particular debate in the UN Parliament, in the British Parliament? So, what should be the strategy of Government of Pakistan in Kashmir? So, this is my opinion, and we are going to discuss it. Clear objectives and consensus on what should be the end result in Kashmir. What should be the end result in Kashmir? We should have a clear idea, clear consensus. All parties should be agreed on that, whether we should continue with our principled stance of pressing for a referendum in Kashmir, or do we have other options? Is Musharraf's 4-point really worth examining? Because now people say that what Musharraf was selling away on the national stance. This is also one point of view. They said what he was doing was actually he was giving up our principled stance on Kashmir. Allocation of resources for a sustainable campaign in Kashmir. Whether there are any allocation in our national budget for Kashmir campaign, I do not know. I do not know whether the government has allocated resources. Okay, this is what we want to do, and this is the monies that we are giving you, and this is the end results that we want you to achieve. This money translated. Just building international opinion. Time to time we keep hearing that Government of Pakistan is sending people, our representatives, to various capitals of the world to create awareness about Kashmir. Most of the people go there. Some of them are interested in pursuing the case of Kashmir. Others go to sales and buy stuffs for their families back home. And there is a lot of debate in the media that these people were sent and they did not do anything for Kashmir. Yes, please.
So where do you expect this campaign to be held when you say campaign in Kashmir?
About Kashmir. It should be a sustainable campaign about Kashmir, on Kashmir. I'm so sorry. What do you want with Kashmir? What do you want? You want it to be a conflict zone forever? You want people to be killed there forever? What do you want in 5 years, 10 years, whatever? Well, this is what milestones with unambiguous timelines, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years at most. You see, in Afghanistan, after 18 years, they are willing to sit down on the table, the Taliban and some Afghan leaders and Americans and the Russians and Pakistanis in certain formats, and they're willing to decide an end to foreign occupation. So it has been 70 years now. So what do you want? You must have some plan, some game plan. Do you want to continue it forever? Yes, please. Vishal, you just wanted to say something? You're writing it down. Okay. So appoint a full-time focal person in Kashmir with direct access to the Prime Minister. So for a very long time we had Maulana Fazlur Rahman, who was the head of the Kashmir Committee. I do not know what Maulana Sahab did or did not do, but obviously this was not a well thought, in my personal opinion, there was no well thought out campaign for Kashmir. So if you want somebody to be your spokesperson, if you want not a spokesperson, but if you want somebody to be a special envoy, if you want somebody to look into the Kashmir problem, and this is a main foreign policy problem. This is the basic conflict. It is draining our country. People talk about the defense budgets and all that stuff. So this is because the cost of the defense budget has also increased tremendously, obviously because of the internal war also. But if there is peace in Afghanistan, that component will slowly and steadily decrease. Our monies which we spend on fighting the war on terror or for equipping our second line forces or police forces to fight the local terrorists is one thing, but this thing also must end if you want to take off in this world as an economically vibrant country, as an economically strong country. Standard & Poor has again decreased the rating of Pakistan and brought it to minus. People do not know what the present government, what game plan the present government has for economic revival. But if you ask me as a common man, I would say reduce the cost of conflict. If you are constantly in conflict, you cannot become a stable nation. So what I'm trying to say is that there should be a full-time envoy or a focal person, somebody, perhaps with the status of a minister, give him a certain kind of status, and he could be a very young person, he could be a very dynamic person, he could be from Kashmir, he could be from Pakistan, but somebody who understands what Kashmir is, somebody who knows what the UN resolutions about Kashmir are, somebody who knows about the history of Kashmir, who has read books about Kashmir, who understands the dynamic in occupied Kashmir. That kind of person should be there. And engagement with new leadership in the occupied territories. So we must engage with the new leadership. I'm sure somebody must be engaging with them. But Sayyid Ali Ginani, who is perhaps the only leader in occupied territories who is unabashedly pro-Pakistan, he has no inhibitions about it, but he will die. He is in his 80s, octogenarian, very sick, very old man. He may die. So would we continue celebrating or commemorating 5th February as Solidarity Day with Kashmir, on which we decide to take a holiday? I don't think we should have a holiday. We should be working on that day. We should be attending classes. We should be attending classes on Kashmir. Or should we continue to commemorate 26th of October, the day the Indian forces landed in Srinagar, as a black day? To what end, to what purpose? Most of the people do not know what Kashmir problem is. Most of the people do not know what Kashmir problem is. That is the irony of fate. The new generation does not know what Kashmir is, why Kashmir is important, what do we do with Kashmir? This is my question to you. So Ayman asked me that why do people keep saying that we should be the ones who should do something about Kashmir? So I have told you what people have been doing about Kashmir, and it's not been an arid area, it's not been a barren area, it's not been something which people have not done about. People have tried to solve Kashmir issue through military means, through guerrilla means, through talks. Nothing has happened so far. So what, in your opinion, should be a main ingredients of a Kashmir policy? If somebody says that you, as the next generation, as the new generation, should have some plan in your mind, or you should work towards the solution of Kashmir, what should be the main ingredients of a Kashmir policy? So I would like, first of all, Ayman to say a few words, then anybody else, people from Azad Kashmir, people from any other part of Pakistan, because this is something which is important for us.
Yes, I would add that at least we should try to learn something from the mistakes of our previous leadership or academia or whoever was the part of this process of solving this issue. So this is very much important, that learning from the learning lessons is very much important. Then we will be able to do something and add something to this problem.
So I think this is a very good point that she's brought out. Learn from the lessons of the past. So what has been the main lesson of the past? This is what I can say. I mean, with the benefit of hindsight, our Kashmir policy has not been consistent. It has been cyclic. There have been upsurges and there have been downturns. Sometimes we go to war, 65, Kargil, 48, and then there are times that we don't talk about anything about Kashmir. There is no consistency. So that, in my opinion, there could be other faults, there could be other flaws, there could be other mistakes, but there is no consistent policy about Kashmir. And unless we have a consistent, if we say that it is our major problem, if we say that this is the major issue of conflict, then for God's sake, have a consistent policy. It should be a declared policy. We do not teach Kashmir in our schools. We do not teach Kashmir in our universities. Our students do not know why Kashmir is important for us. Yes.
And
Tayyiba.
Sir, why state of Pakistan is not focusing on the conflict zones which are in Pakistan? We have huge poverty, unemployment, socio-economic indicators are very bad, and we have to always look for IMF bailout package. But in addition to it, we are continuously focusing upon Kashmir, the human rights in Kashmir. Why international community would favor Pakistan by going against India, which is the global economy?
Very good question. We have problems at home, but it's connected with conflict in Kashmir. Yeah. You cannot totally ignore it. You see, Because of conflict in Kashmir, there's unrest in Kashmir, and the fallout is in Pakistan. I have personally witnessed people crossing the line of control after the 1989 election, 1990. I was in Kashmir. People were coming in, they were brutalized, and they wanted to go back and fight. So you see, you cannot divorce them. They look up to you. They look up to you.
But sir,
You cannot.
you have to fix your own mess.
How can you fix your own mess when you have a already going on?
See, if the own mess can be reduced, if the cost of conflict can be reduced, the cost of conflict will remain if you have huge armies.
Yeah.
You see, the huge army will remain because you have threat from India. You see, if somehow Kashmir is resolved, and you say that okay, because the conflict is resolved, we do not need to spend so much on our forces there to defend your country, then perhaps that money can be diverted to poverty. These things are linked. These two things, and you just have to look at what is happening in Palestine. The way the Palestinians are being repressed because they do not have anybody to defend them. Not the Arabs, nobody. So the repression.
Sir, what we have done so far, sir, we are just providing the lip service.
No, you're right. That's why I'm saying that Kashmir should be resolved. Somehow it should be resolved. There should be an imaginative, out-of-box solution. Yes, I think she was the one who raised her question. I'm going to ask all of you. This is an important thing, and I'm going to ask all of you. Yes, this is an important question that you have asked. There must be some resolution to Kashmir crisis. Yes.
So don't you think that the Kashmiri people and the Kashmiri leaders should be involved more in decision-making process?
Yes.
Like if it's mostly between Pakistan and India.
Pakistan engages with Kashmiri leadership. The High Commissioner usually invites them for conversation in Delhi, to which the Indians have started taking offense to, and they've stopped. I think High Commissioner Abdul Basit was the last person, and even now when our Foreign Minister talked to Mir Wais Umar Farooq, the Indians took objection to it. And they called our High Commissioner, who are you to talk to Mir Wais? And our argument is always that Kashmir is a disputed territory, Pakistan is part of the conflict, and we want to engage the Kashmiri leadership in whatever happens there. Pakistan has always been talking about Kashmiris as a legitimate stakeholders. So.
This conference, I think Black Day वाली ही उसमें the Prime Minister जो अभी हैं कश्मीर के और जो President they both insisted कि हम लोगों को जो Government of Pakistan की तरफ से ना जो आप कह रहे हो ना कि हम Kashmiris क्यों नहीं करते, वो कहते हैं कि we have the authority, we can take decision, we can do the decision making itself, but decision making इस side of territory हो रही है, उस side से नहीं हो रही. So जब तक दोनों sides नहीं होगी, पाकिस्तानी government की तरफ से इतना issue नहीं है जितना issue is from the Indian side.
I've got 2 points to make. One relates to Mariam's point. Firstly, एक तो होना चाहिए that the Pakistani government should be open to all possibilities from the side of the Kashmiris. For example, currently we talk about a lot about the fact that Kashmir should be a part of Pakistan. But what if down the road a referendum is conducted and they want liberation? So that's an option I feel Pakistan should be open
Pakistan is willing to take that risk.
Pakistan says that supportive. For example, Yasin Malik, etc. They're allowed in Pakistan, all of that. We are more open compared to India, obviously. But at the same
Yasin
time,
Malik incidentally talks of a third option. He does not talk of although his wife lives over there, Mishal Malik, but he talks. He belongs to JKLF, and he talks about a third option in which Kashmir remains independent. So Pakistan is open to that.
Yes, that's my point. That it should be more in the mainstream. That the third option, which is the right of Kashmiris, that should be open in the mainstream as well.
Oh, good.
And secondly, I feel that at the grassroots level in Pakistan, again, like you said, awareness nahi diya logon ko. We don't talk about
Absolutely
the Kashmir issue, and that has been going on as early as 1971 because I've heard accounts of people who were actually happy after the Shimla agreement ke, theek hai, if you don't want to deal with the Kashmir issue, that's fine, as long as the prisoners of war actually come home. So, it's something that needs to be dealt with.
You are absolutely right. We do not have a consistent policy. And when I say consistent policy, even at the national level, you have to create a national opinion, public opinion about it. So it should not be with small issues like getting the prisoner of war back home. It should be all holistic, all comprising. Before I ask you a question, there's somebody else who is raising it. आपने सवाल कर लिया और कोई ऐसा रह गया जिसने सवाल अब तक ना आप कुछ कहना चाहते हैं बोलिए
Sir, during 1960s one of the Bhutto statement was that he was strictly advised to any sort of like compromise on Kashmir So is the case in India. It's not the governments that they are not the ones to take decision. It's the pressure groups within societies. And there is a Burton technique where he says that if we involve social groups, the pressure groups that are more prone to such conflicts, who do not even let the governments make their decisions. If such their misperceptions is addressed and that's resolved, it could lead to the governments, and they can pressurize governments instead of going into conflict. They can resolve those issues as well.
But this is what happened during Vajpayee regime, when he was about to solve this issue, but there was so much pressure from the public that he
So that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
So most of the time, the pressure is not from public. Most of the time, it is from, as he says, pressure groups, the power elites, whoever is there, hawks. So in Kashmir, it's become so politicized that it's on either side. If you try to make any movement on Kashmir, the other party starts, the people who are not in power start accusing you of selling out on Kashmir. So this is what happened with Nawaz Sharif. Although he was not talking about Kashmir, he was talking about better relationship between the two countries. So people said you are selling out. It has been always the case in India, Pakistan. That is why you see, particularly in case of India, there's so much Pakistan bashing when their election is there. We don't talk about India. We are not obsessed by India, but India is obsessed with Pakistan.
I have another question.
Yes, I think she wanted to ask a question. Yes.
Sir, it's more of an opinion than a question.
Sure.
When you said consistency, I do totally agree with that. But I feel like we cannot afford consistency in terms of economy, in terms of politics, and militia as well. I mean, if we look at India, they are consistent in their stance. And, when we talk about human rights violations and even the LOC, ceasefire violations, they are consistent in violations. But we cannot afford consistency in terms of, standing and keep fighting with them. Also, I feel like our foreign policies across the globe sort of restrict us within a constraint of what we can and we cannot do about Kashmir. Because, I feel like political parties even have different stances. We're not unified.
You're right. In many ways, I think consistency should be there. The national plan, national aim, objectives should be there. It is incumbent on each government to plan, to give a national plan. I think you have to look at the manifestos of political parties and what do they say about Kashmir. They do not mention Kashmir. I do not in very strong terms or in very clear terms. What do they want? I think only Jamaat Islami has some clear-cut plan on Kashmir, and Jamaat Islami is no more a political force. They were resoundingly defeated in the last elections. So what does PTA say about it? What does PMLN say about it? What does PPP, the three main parties, say about it?
So that's not since 2008 till अभी तक जो last government था, last government के तो 2016 तो मोदी government की वजह से ज़्यादा कश्मीर का issue highlight हुआ. Otherwise मुझे नहीं याद कि मैंने after 2008 कभी कश्मीर के ऊपर इतनी strong debate कभी सुनी हो जितनी मैं अब सुन रही हूँ. Since 2016 बीच में the issue was, और उसके we have seen कि economy भी पाकिस्तान की उसी तरह worse हुई है जिस तरह we have ignored the Kashmir issue.
Like आपके mainstream discourse.
Exactly. For instance, Aman की आशा, it was an initiative. It was started, but वो भी backfire किया और हमारी economy उसके साथ-साथ.
So all these things are linked. What she was saying, that why don't you look at poverty? I said poverty is linked to the cost of conflict, and you cannot avoid conflict. No, if you say okay, take away Kashmir and we don't want to have anything to do with Kashmir, but that does not. That will not stop the conflict. There's something wrong in the valley. There's something happening there. So that has to be resolved. So you can not close your eyes, and if it's resolved somehow, then probably your again somebody was saying about lip service. Yeah, this should not be lip service. I think Imran Khan, when he made his initial speech, he did talk about Kashmir. Yeah. So he did mention about Kashmir, but it should be clear cut. We want to resolve Kashmir, whatever we want to do, but there should be a policy. Somebody should be entrusted with that policy. Oh, for God's sake, make a policy in Kashmir. What do you want? And then when Shahid Afridi says out of desperation that, for God's sake, people are getting killed there. Don't give it to us. Don't take. At least have some solution for Kashmir. So it was a simple-minded statement that he made, but I think he was, in some ways, he was right. For God's sake, do something for these poor people who are dying. So I do not know if the government, the government on either side is actually worried about what is happening in Kashmir. That is what I feel. But I think there has been some momentum. There's something. It is being brought up again into discussion, and I hope there is some resolution. But perhaps in some ways, Kashmiris might have to take ownership of this entire thing. But in Pakistan, we cannot just say, ignore it, that no, let the Kashmiris handle. Because what is happening is Palestine is because everybody has given up on them. Their Arab brothers, anybody, the entire world at large, nobody's. So the Israelis can kill them with impunity. They can do whatever they feel like doing. The Palestinians keep getting suppressed.
So that's it. So in terms of resolution, I feel like with both the parties, we're waiting for a miracle, or probably that story waiting for Godot, you know, because or either waiting for each other to tire out and then probably back out. That is going to be the only possible solution in the near future if that happens. Otherwise, this seems to be a very, you know, prolonged thingy to keep going on.
Sir, 2 days ago there was this article that showed that there were these buses in England, I think, and all of them had slogans which mentioned Kashmir and how the Kashmir should not be ignored. And then there was this article, another article in which there was this there was this gallery in which Maliha Lodi was there, and there were different pictures being shown to different world leaders about the pellet gun issues or the other atrocities that are happening in Kashmir right now. So at the end of the day, when you think that you alone cannot solve an issue, you can involve the international community and ask them to help in the foreign policy domain to pressurize, let's say, India or any other parties involved to at least think something about the issue. Maybe like 2 years down the lane or 3 years down the lane, at least कहीं से शुरू तो करें आप, चाहे दुनिया को involve करें, अपने friends.
So problem is that nobody has been. The only time somebody tried to arbitrate for you was Russia or Soviet Union. What happened in Tashkent was under the good offices of the USSR. Okay, Kosygin was there and their foreign minister. So I think we have been trying to ask the United States to help us out there. We've been asking the United Kingdom to help us out there. So international mediation, arbitration can help. Why not try the Chinese? Why not try the Russians now? Exactly. Because you see, this is not, they're not apolitical, they have their own interests. Yeah. But Chinese want stability. Yes. They do not want wars. So if they want their Belt Road Initiative to succeed, they would like to have this area, they would like this area to become stable. The Chinese were able to resolve their issue of Doklam Plateau through talks. It was not a repeat of 1962 war. Because they have an $80 billion volume of trade between China and India. And Xi Jinping was willing to go to the house of Modi in Gujarat and willing to sit on the swing and willing to take tea with him in his house, in his home. So Russia is doing it for the Taliban, for the Afghans. So why not go to new powerful countries, newly emerging countries, or countries who can stand up to India or stand up to the United States of America. So there could be a regional approach that could because India is not going to talk to you. India knows that you, perhaps in their mind, they're convinced that you are a dysfunctional country or you are a failed state or whatever, which is wrong, which is absolutely wrong.
The issue of Balochistan, which I don't, I can never understand. Do you
think plebiscite could be a fair decision considering the fact that India has changed the demography of Kashmir in many areas, like Jammu side?
That's a risk. That's a challenge. I do not know. I do not have any empirical evidence. But
it has taken place back in 1947 when Kashmir might have become part of Pakistan by a free and fair plebiscite.
Aisha, Gilgit and Baltistan would probably vote for you. Azad Kashmir will vote for you. Yeah. Okay, you will vote for us. Yes. Okay, they'll vote for us. That's a sample that we have in the class. In the valley, we know that there are people waving Pakistani flags and people burying their dead wrapped in Pakistani flags. So perhaps they'll vote for you. Jammu and Ladakh, I do not know. So it's more or less what Owen Dixon said. So the challenge is there, the risk is there, but this is one solution. This is an age-old solution. This is an old solution. Perhaps it can take place. There is the Musharraf formula. Perhaps that can take place. But if we have, we are both Pakistan and India are now part of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Although this organization is not meant to set petty disputes between two independent countries, it is more against counter-terrorism. But perhaps this is one platform where you can raise the issue. You can talk, engage with both China and Russia, and say, look, we want stability in this area. United States of America is a withdrawing power. The Indians are tied up with them. So can you help us here? I think the solutions are there. And I think if people are really serious, if our government is serious, if our government has a plan up its sleeve, you Kashmiris alone cannot do it. Palestinians cannot do it because Palestinians have no supporters, they have no backers. Kashmiris at least have some.
But Indians are following the Israeli model.
Sorry?
The Indians are following
They are.
model.
Yes, but Israelis have a field day because nobody comes for the support of Palestinians. In case of Kashmiris, there is Pakistan. There is Pakistan, and Pakistan can. Yes, last question, Bushra.
I will suggest a solution, but first I want to ask a question. It may sound really harsh, but what's Pakistan's interest in Kashmir? Is it on the hydropolitics, it is because of the rivers, or it is on the humanitarian basis?
All those things. Because you see, we stood up for Afghanistan in the first case, because we thought that it was the model thing. America came late for first 2 years we were all alone. We thought that it was in our interest. They were Muslims, and if we don't stop the Russians, Soviets, then they would be moving in and coming to our coastline, because that's what we thought was their interest. And in the case
are suffering, right? Whether it's like now or yet we are pushing towards them or whatever, Kashmiris are suffering in both the ways. So I want to.
It's everything.
If it's just on the humanitarian basis, then I can suggest a solution that what if we give Kashmir to India, but with certain monitoring under UN or some organization where human rights are not violated, but apparently
Kashmiris doesn't want it now. Kashmiris doesn't want to be.
Let us say what she wants to say.
Like both the countries, Pakistan and India, are interested in water and not on the human rights.
No, Pakistan is very much bothered about human rights. We continue to talk about human rights, and we should.
If they are bothered about human rights, then they can just leave Kashmir, but under some organization or UN supervision.
But does India agree to it? Does India agree to it?
We are giving them whole India. Why would they not agree?
Why would they give
We are more
That is the Shahid Afridi solution. Oh, that can be done. That can be done provided India does
I know
not.
Kashmiris won't agree, but if Pakistan want to have a proper solution on the basis of human rights, and
Then again, who is Pakistan or who is India to decide for
Basically, it's a major stakeholder. No, we always say that there are three parties to the conference. Pakistan says the Kashmiris are a major stakeholder. Kashmiris are major stakeholder. India does not consider Kashmiris to be a stakeholder. They said that issues decided, Kashmir is an integral part of India, we do not want to talk about it. And they are not talking to the Kashmiris also. They are just killing them. So there are no guarantees that if you say that, okay, we withdraw ourselves, we are no more party to the conflict, you decide yourself. The Indians would not leave them alone.
It sounds vague and not real, but what if there is somebody who can monitor it?
Who is going to monitor? Who is going to monitor? So I do not know. UN has not so far been able to guarantee the rights of Palestinians. You see, the UN has not sent any UN peacekeeping force in Palestine. The UN has not sent any UN peacekeeping force in Syria. UN has not sent any peacekeeping force in Afghanistan. You see, they sent peacekeeping forces in areas which is of their interest. So these are issues. You see, UN is also not a neutral body per se. It's attached to the purse strings of the countries who are financing it. And the United States, as of now, at this moment in time, provides 22% of the funds to the United Nations. So there are many things. But a regional approach can be adopted if China and Russia, which are two major UN Security Council members out of the 5, perhaps there could be stability in this area. But the interests of the Kashmiris cannot be ignored. This last.
Why can't people of Gilgit-Baltistan vote?
The people of Gilgit-Baltistan say
Kashmir can vote because can vote, but why Gilgit-Baltistan people cannot vote?
so. They're increasing.
Disputed territories.
You're right. So they're increasing voices which say that people from Gilgit-Baltistan should be given their due rights, and the Supreme Court has been issuing statements on it, which is none of their business actually. But over the period of time, there have been Gilgit-Baltistan Empowerment Act 2009, things of that sort, in which they've got their own assembly also. But there should be more. There should be solution to Gilgit-Baltistan also. They should not get caught up in the Kashmir dispute, because they say that we are not ethnically we are not the same, and we are the ones who actually liberated our own territories, and we actually want to be part of Pakistan. There are people who in those areas also who talk about secession, who talk about independent status, but most of the people say we want to be part of Pakistan. We want to be the.
Are they allowed to vote and be a part of Pakistan? Gilgit-Baltistan. I'm not talking about
They should be allowed, and there's an increasing awareness to that. People are talking about giving the people of Gilgit-Baltistan their rights. So, I am not against it. I am very much for it. Thank you very much. It was an interesting conversation.